Good evening. Hey guys, it's going to be a solo show with me. I might try to call Sam in here in a minute just for funnies. We had a State of the State. I promised we were going to do a State of the State review show, so I'm doing it a couple days late. The original plan fell through like it does. It is the 11th of February, 2021. It's a cold and rainy evening here in Knoxville. Hope everybody's dry and safe and all that kind of stuff. Supposed to have Eddie Manis tomorrow. We're rescheduling for sometime sooner than later, I hope. Massey's in the pipeline. I've got Parker from the city council. I've got another city council lined up. I've got so many things happening that I don't even know where to begin. Suffice to say that I'm going to keep working and keep finding stuff, and we'll see what we can do. Working on getting some advertisers in, making this a full-time gig, seeing if I can retire from my day job. How much fun would that be? Anywho, if you're my boss for the day job, I'm just kidding. I'm not quitting. I like working there. So, again, it's a Thursday night. I'm by myself, trying to figure out what's going on. And what I really need to do is I need to start with an apology. I conflated the purchase of some aviation electronics kits as to being clones when they are in fact some repair stuff for some of the helicopters the sheriff's office already owns. That is my fault. I should have double checked that before I ran on that and then spieled on a number of different episodes about said topic. But end of the day, the drone situation is still something to talk about. Becky Massey and the state is pushing a bill through. Let me be fair in statement here. Pardon my coughing. I got the corona. Massey has introduced a bill that is going to change some of the regulations involving how law enforcement can use drones. I am working on trying to get an interview with the sheriff's office, Sheriff Spangler in particular, but I'll take anybody to start with and talk to them about what their plans are for future drone use. If we even have they may already have a drone in inventory that we don't know about. I won't say that we don't know about, that I don't know about as of right now. And the fact is that KPD already has at least one. And again, this state bill changing some stuff. I know Lafferty has put in the bill to request this special tax district for the baseball stadium thing. That's another thing going on right now. Among a number of other things, I'm really happy. Eddie Manis has co-sponsored a bill trying to curb the amount of civil asset forfeiture. Then that's a big deal, and that's important to me, at least. I think that's one of the problems that the system kind of has, and we're working backwards against. So anyway, long story to say that I screwed up and kind of jumped to a conclusion that this avionics kit was the sheriff's office buying a drone. At least according to the sheriff's office, essentially they got a really good deal from the Department of Defense on some equipment they needed to fix their helicopters and keep them in the air safely and blah, 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 where they would have paid significantly more on the regular market instead of buying it as a surplus DOD product. So my apologies on that. I'll try to not do that in the future, but at the same time, as everybody knows, I'm not a journalist. I'm just a guy trying to figure out what's going on. So my in-depth reporting is going to be scant at best, so I don't feel too bad about it. So anyway, the point of this tonight was for me to talk about some of the state of the state from Governor Lee. And one of the issues I have is I'm not exactly sure what most of the things they're talking about. The first good chunk of it was a bunch of, this is what we did this year. And so one of my things, and again, here's a key component of I don't have the time. I have a day job. I have kids. I own businesses. As much as I do very much enjoy doing podcasts, I have other things I want to do with my day than read mountains and mountains of paperwork and try to source all these different things out. But there's a couple times in the state of the state where, we'll hear it here in a second because I'm going to play clips as we go, but where Governor Lee is touting how well Tennessee did in mass distribution, in testing, and all this different stuff. And I can't help but think, he can't flat lie about that. Is it true that we were good? We were better than average? I've heard some people complaining about it after the fact, but I haven't heard any data that says we're not that good compared to the other states. Well, we could be worse than Sweden, but are we comparing ourselves to other countries, or within how poorly the U.S. government and the United States fared? We fared on the top portion of that. That's a good thing, right? I don't know. So anyway, I'm gonna just start kind of playing chunks and pieces and get bored and move on. But another thing that jumps out to me is that it's now, like I said, Thursday. The State of the State was on Monday, the 8th, and at least on their YouTube channel for the state of Tennessee, there is less than 1,000 views. I'm about to be number 999. Background noise, getting up there.
Without objection, the roll call of the House Rep.
Weird procedural stuff, and here comes Governor Lee to get started on his address.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Lieutenant Governor McNally, Speaker Sexton, Speaker Pro Tem Hale.
Yeah, this bores me.
My partner in every aspect. Last year, we stood together at the starting line of 2020, ready for a challenge. Tennesseans will know tonight that tragedy has no hold on who we are or where we are headed. Tragedy will not define us. It won't rob us of the opportunity that 2021 holds. In fact, this year holds its own unique place in our history as we celebrate 225 years of statehood. Since 1796, our state has been the portrait of perseverance and character and hope because of everyday heroes.
Sorry, I'm just trying to find something worth talking about.
Starting with acknowledging this place and time where we are in COVID right now. It will soon be part of our 225-year history.
So I thought it was pretty well done as far as the speech portion goes to bring up the 225-year anniversary and how the COVID will be part of that and the COVID recovery will be part of that. And he kind of pitches it as we're going to do a good job of that. But this to me lands right here.
Growing the size of government and reaching for the nearest mandate will save everything, but not in Tennessee. The worldwide data on government success is mixed, but in Tennessee, our approach has been consistent. Maintain local control wherever possible. Rely on people.
Now, like I said, that's one of those things that, to me, it lands well with my philosophy, but I don't know the data. He said that the data is mixed, but he feels like the state of Tennessee did well and that we should be proud of the way we handled it. And, and again, I agree with the premise that when something crazy happens, our gut reaction is to look up and see who can save us, and instead of looking within. And so, again, I that rings well to me. I'm not agreeing or disagreeing with what he's saying. I'm just, putting my 2 cents in.
With our hospital partners, one of our first decisions have in-person option for students.
I agree with that. I like we have in-person options.
And good news doesn't always get noticed, but our vaccine distribution plan was recognized by the former CDC Director Redfield as the most medically sound and practical plan in the country.
Except for those 1,000 doses that disappeared, which I've now heard a bunch of different reports on they never actually got here.
We are getting shots.
Or someone in Buchanan's office threw them away on accident.
Who need it the most. And despite the challenges associated with COVID-19, we have managed these challenges with very limited restrictions on Tennessee businesses and citizens. And when they
were this part pissed me off when I was listening to it originally.
And temporary.
Targeted and temporary. I have a number of friends in the bar and restaurant industry. My wife is a bartender to boot. And targeted and temporary does not apply whatsoever to the way they've attacked restaurants in this game. Dr. O'Brien said it in one of the meetings months ago when I was watching one of the Board of Health meetings. He said it clear as day. It is not about what the restaurants are doing. It's the people that are coming. those people are going to meet anyway. If me and you want to go out and have a beer and there's no bars that are allowed to be open, but I want to hang out with you because you're my buddy, then you're going to come over to the house. That's how people have been treating it the whole time. So all it's done to shut down bars and restaurants is to keep me and you from meeting at a bar or restaurant. But for the majority of bars and restaurants, according to Dr. O'Brien, it's not the staff that is infecting the patrons. It's not the patrons that are infecting the staff. It's the patrons that are affecting the group they are with. Not the group that's 2 tables over because they're separated because the restaurants are trying to play by the recommendations of the CDC and the Board of Health. It is me and you want to go hang out. I've been exposed somewhere else, and I bring it to our meeting. That is the only part of bars and restaurants, as far as I understand it, that it makes them a vector for transmission. So it has nothing to do with the restaurant at all. You and I could meet at the Starbucks at Kroger, and we'll be fine. Nobody's going to stop us from doing it that way. We can go a dozen other places that are open. So that one bothered me because it was not, in my opinion, from what I've seen, and maybe this is the Board of Health version versus the state version, and they're 2 different things happening simultaneously, so both things could be true at once. But for the local version of targeted and temporary, for my friends that are in the bar and restaurant industry, that is a false statement. It has not been targeted. It has not been temporary. Well, I take that back. It has been targeted at restaurants, but not scientifically so. And it has not been temporary. It has been nonstop. And it's slowly reopening, even though the Board of Health met earlier this week and they've continued it another month. We stay with the total number of restrictions, and we stay with the 11 o'clock cutoff. So anyway, that's that part for me.
You may remember the last time I addressed Tennesseans was the week before Christmas. A post-Thanksgiving surge, our team of public health professionals.
Blah, blah.
Workforce participation for the first time in 25 years. In fact, many segments of our economy are more prosperous than they were this time last year.
That interests me.
In the worst of the economic phase of our pandemic, our unemployment climbed to 15.5%.
I'm curious what is to account for.
It's at 6.4%. We created the Tennessee Talent Exchange
for our economic growth despite the
workers
pandemic.
With jobs. Our workforce participation rate has improved drastically over the past year.
This one.
It's better today than it was before the pandemic. And we have now exceeded the national average in workforce participation for the first time in 25 years.
That's pretty exciting. I'm really curious why. I'd like to know what it is that is making that happen. But again, I don't have the data to corroborate what he's saying. I'm just taking him at his word. But as far as I've seen so far, nobody's kicked him in the face for saying it either. So continue.
But some of our industries are struggling, and we have spent long hours and hundreds of millions of dollars to help Tennesseans keep their businesses. In June 2020, the Tennessee Business Relief Program was launched. A total of $200 million in business relief payments has been distributed to over 27,000 small businesses in Tennessee. In October of 2020, the Supplemental Employer Recovery Grant, or SURGE program, was established. $125 million of the coronavirus relief funds has been reserved for this program, and to date, $30 million has been distributed in grant funding to 13 businesses. A strong economy, Senator Watson, Senator Ackberry,
blah, blah. You know, I mean, as a Republican who's not big on oversight, he talks about his committee he put together to make sure that people taking grants and other COVID relief efforts deserve them. And that's kind of legit, I guess. I don't know what the parameters they did for that, but, you know, if we're going to be giving money away, we might as well make sure it's getting used correctly.
The dust settles on this year, our combined rainy day and TennCare reserve funds will be $2 billion, the largest in the state's history.
Now, this one. And this is where I get really lost in the money. We have better, higher workforce participation than we've had in 25 years, or we're better than the national average. whatever. It's better than it's been. So our workforce participation has gone up, which does presume to increase tax revenues, and the argument of if this isn't a rainy day, then what is? And I get that, but the question is, and this is a legit question. This isn't me dogging anybody, trying to make any argument out of it. Where should we be spending money out of this rainy day fund? I agree that this pandemic should count as a rainy day. This should be the time where it's like, oh, this is why we saved this money. What else could there possibly be that a rainy day fund would go for? Some specifically statewide thing. And again, this is one of those things I'm not sure how the mechanics work on it. It could very well be that a lot of our spending that we want during the pandemic is coming out of federal funds that Governor Lee and his office and the state are manipulating around to get out to cover the things that we need. So this is a legit question to everybody. I really, it's not I'm not trying to throw shade here. I'm legitimately curious. Where should this money be going if we are going to start pulling out of the rainy day fund? Again, not saying we should or shouldn't. I'm just saying I agree that the pandemic should fall under the category of the rainy day and what the rainy day fund is safe for. But where should this money be going? Schools is one. I had a nice long conversation with a friend in the school system earlier about how ridiculous this virtual schooling setup is, and which I totally agree with. It's so hard for me as a parent to keep up with what my student is supposed to be keeping up with. And I was talking about how I was complaining pre-pandemic. Kindergarten year, teacher used this program, this app, this messenger service. First grade year, new teacher, different one, and then third grade year, and then second grade year also brings in my new kindergartner. So I have all these teachers using all these different apps and these communication tools and these behavior grade things, and then we have the Canvas and the dashboard and all these other different things going on, and it's really, really difficult for me, where I have elementary school kids, where my friend has middle high school kids, where they have multiple teachers each day, and each teacher has a different, meetings thing when they're doing a virtual class, and different methods of turning in assignments and doing this, that, and the other. And for me to manage that, for me to just sit down and pretend to be a student for today, forget the knowledge of the subject. It takes a lot of bandwidth for me to have the knowledge of the program. Forget whether I can divide fractions or not. That part's secondary to dividing those fractions, filling in the worksheet, and then what method it is to turn it in. And this goes into something I think is coming up here in a second. He talks about this broadband connection thing, which is it's interesting. I'm curious what it means exactly. But anyway, tangent on
We proactively
rainy day.
used our state's federal relief dollars to ensure the solvency of our unemployment trust fund, which would minimize the tax burden on employees and encourage hiring. As a result, while over half of the states in this country have lost more than 75% of their trust fund value, Tennessee enters 2021 fully solvent at the lowest employer tax rate.
I'm not exactly sure what that means. I think that means that the fund has enough money to continue paying unemployment as needed, so that we have enough in the bank that if a reasonable percentage of people go onto unemployment, the state can issue unemployment checks without having to borrow or take from another department or something of that nature.
Way. And furthermore, I'm committing today that we will use the shared savings to do important work like shortening the waiting list for those with intellectual and developmental disabilities who need services. Receiving
That's cool.
care benefits from 60 days to 12 months. To increase, let me be clear, if partisan attacks that call for this block grant to be rescinded prevail, the state will not get those shared savings dollars that we plan to use to improve health care for vulnerable Tennesseans. This block grant is a big deal, and I'm proud of it, but it's not all that we're doing in
I need to know
healthcare
more about this block
across
grant.
Tennessee.
I don't know
My
exactly what
budget
he's
proposal
referencing.
includes $6.5 million to extend postpartum coverage to all women receiving TennCare benefits from 60 days to 12 months, to increase This will increase access to care for new moms. And we're making an additional $2 million investment in our healthcare safety net so that those without health insurance have a place to go when they need it. We're also adding $6.5 million to our mental health safety net, which will be focused on providing services for school-aged children struggling with mental health issues.
I'm curious how that breaks out, but it's kind of legit. Applause break, applause break.
And with the elections behind us, we will watch with patriotic skepticism to see if politicians in Washington try to force more government on the states than the 10th Amendment allows.
Now this one is one I need to do some more research on. I'm planning on maybe bringing lawyer Jamie back in and see how well versed he is on the 10th Amendment. I need to look it up a little bit myself. I'll do that right now. Hey Google, let's read the 10th Amendment in simple terms. Thank you, Google. The 10th Amendment in simple language. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution nor prohibited by it to the states are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. That was weird. That didn't read as well as I hoped. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution nor prohibited by it to the states are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. I think what that's supposed to mean is what I think it's supposed to say is basically states get first whack at it. You know, we get to take care of ourself outside of major other things. All right, here we go. U.S. government for kids. Ducksters.com. The 10th Amendment was part of the Bill of Rights that was added to the Constitution on December 15, 1791. The amendment states that any power not specifically given to the federal government by the Constitution belongs to the states and the people. Okay, thank you, kids version. Made it way easier to understand it. So yes, that's exactly what it is. It's if it's not in the Constitution, the federal government has the right. And this goes back to one of the things that Jamie and I were talking about. We were talking about privacy rights. We were talking about it more on the local level, which is also an issue, but privacy rights on a federal level. But like one of the ones that I bitch about a lot is how loosely termed interstate commerce has become. Because again, for this podcast, sure, this podcast is international for that matter. We've had listeners in China and Japan and Germany and South America. I think we had one Australian at one point, a Japanese listener here or there. Don't know why. Don't know how they found us, but cool. Good on them. Hope they enjoyed it. But for my day business, you have to walk in my door to spend money. And the way interstate commerce works is that if we import product from out of state, okay, I'll give that one. But even if we didn't, even if we had everything produced here locally to sell, if we take credit cards, we fall under interstate commerce. If we use a Facebook page just for social purposes, you know, we're not even allowed to advertise on Facebook because of the type of business we do. But just to have a Facebook page so that you could, you know, be like, hey, I want to see what their hours are today. Or, hey, I had a question about this thing and I don't want to go down there just to ask the question. Maybe I can message them through Facebook. Interstate commerce. We have a website for the business. Interstate commerce. We don't sell on Facebook. We don't sell on our website, but we fall under the interstate commerce clause, which changes some of the regulations we have with employees, some of the regulations we have with our ability to sell certain products and this, that, and the other. And so, you know, that's one of the concerns to me. So I'm on board with this one. This one makes sense to me. I mean, I think that's one of the genesis for the shows, for this show is that I'm tired of talking about the federal government. You know, the bubble and those people inside the beltway, as the term goes or whatever, they're busy doing their own thing. And no offense, but it doesn't seem to give a shit about me or you. And to be fair, Governor Lee probably doesn't give a shit about me or you either. but at least it's within range. You know, I can talk to Eddie Manis. I have Eddie Manis coming on the show. I can talk to Becky Massey. I have Becky Massey coming on the show. Gloria Johnson's on my list of people. I have people that work in Nashville in this government directly with Governor Lee that I can actually reach out and be in contact with. No, yeah, I could reach out to Haggerty, and I could probably get Haggerty on at some point with a little bit of work and a little bit more time and a little bit more listeners help us out. But at the end of the day, that doesn't need to be their job. It needs to be Governor Lee's job. It needs to be Massey and Manis and Johnson and all the other state legislatures, and even more than that, it needs to be our commission and city council that we're really, really worried about. It should matter a lot more. And this is one of those things that weirds me out. It's like this tax thing that's going on right now. Lafferty introduced the bill for changing the special tax district thing for this baseball stadium if we're going to do it. And it's like, why do we need to ask the state for permission? How much of our money goes to the state and doesn't come back to Knox County? I understand that there is a logical need for some of the less affluent counties to get a little piece of cash flow from our bigger counties like us in Nashville and Memphis and Tri-Cities and Chattanooga and stuff like that. It makes sense to me. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it that way. But again, it's a complaint I've made on the show a number of times. If you really break down your taxes, if I understand correctly, and I'm pretty sure I do, if you break down your taxes correctly, the order of influence on your life and how much you pay in taxes is exactly backwards. You pay the most taxes to the federal government, and they have the least impact on your daily life. You pay the least taxes to our local government, and they have the most impact on your daily life. And the state's in the middle either way. And worst case scenario, that is worst case scenario to me. Best case scenario, it should be the complete opposite. State stays in the middle. Local gets most money. Local has most influence. Federal gets least money. Federal has least influence. But even if we just knocked the federal down to the bottom and it was state, local, federal, in amount spent and influence on your life, we as people would be better off. We in Tennessee, especially in East Tennessee, we are not California. We are not New York. We're not Texas. We're not Illinois. We're not Montana. And that's the point. The point is we're not these other people, and that we can do things a little differently here. We can do things that are a little bit different than they do them in Kentucky. I mean, even just super local. Kentucky and Tennessee are not the same place. And they shouldn't be treated as the same place. And that's one of the problems with the federal system to me. Oh, shit. Hit the wrong button. Let's get back in here.
And we owe it to our students to keep that momentum going, even during the pandemic. This year, I'm proposing an additional $10 million to create 10 new gift sites with a priority on distressed and at-risk communities with the greatest need for workforce revitalization. Last year, the Future Workforce Initiative that I proposed and you enacted trained more than 200 teachers in STEM CTE programs. Expanded access must be fewer broken families, but there are things that we can do. This last year, the faith-based office played an important role in engaging our local faith communities to help connect people with employment opportunities. We've improved training standards and paid for almost 100 cadets to attend improved law enforcement training.
Yeah. All right.
And
I
to
give
help
up on him.
Local governments
He says
and
hope and hope and
communities
hope and hope a
recover
bunch
from
of
COVID
times.
faster, we are proposing a $200 million investment in local government infrastructure grants.
Now, to quote Randy Pace, what are the strings attached to said grant? But it's still something.
This funding
I'm not mad at it.
will assist local governments with public safety projects.
All right. So anyway, that's that part of things. So on the budget stuff that he talked about, there was some of the big ones. I pulled up the fiscal year 22 budget from Governor Lee's office, the current proposal. Total budget of $41.8 billion. That money is collected by 50% from state appropriation, 35% of federal funds, and 15% of other. I'm curious what consists of other. I'm also curious how, 35, I can't do the math that fast. 20, I don't know, $15 billion we get from the federal government. I'm curious how that exactly breaks down, where that all comes from. But 20 plus billion coming from you and I in sales tax and property tax. Expenditures, K through 12 education, 5.6 billion. 10 care, 4.1. Higher education, 2.3. Transportation, corrections, both at 1.2, and other, 6.7. So the largest single category is other. The second largest is K through 12 education. And so the key highlight that he has on here, and again, this is one of those things I don't understand. I don't understand what this means. The BEP funding, but it's fully funding education. It's something that people were pitching a fit about last year. So he plans on fully funding this broadband expansion thing he talked about on there, which I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know. I mean, yes, I think that internet is a utility at this point, realistically. So I don't know exactly what to say about whether we should be doing that or not. But it's the combined, civic private venture that is supposed to be making that happen is curious to me. I'm going to try to keep an eye on that. Again, it includes a 2% increase in addition to the 2% increase in teacher salaries. So that's a total of 4% this year for teacher salaries. Additional $50 million in rainy day fund, $150 million in COVID relief and support, $931 million in capital maintenance and improvements. That one jumped out to me in the speech. It was weird. Capital maintenance and improvements is state buildings, state parks, and state schools, not lower education, higher education. That is a pretty hefty sum for university crap to me. 931, to put it in perspective, 931 billion in capital maintenance and improvements, 2 million extra in healthcare safety net, 7 million in the postpartum care for 10 care population. So 900 plus million in prettying up the Capitol building and UT buildings, 2 million in healthcare, extra healthcare, 30 million in state parks. I don't know. 8 million in tourism incentives. Again, I get that. That's an investment. That one's an investment in trying to get more tax revenue in the future. But just trying to break this down. And again, maybe I don't understand it because 4.1 billion is of the total budget. 20% of the total budget is 10 care. That 2 million goes into. That's 2 million more into that department than it was before. I guess I'm not exactly sure. So I don't know. I mean, I wasn't mad at it, but I'm certainly not keyed into enough things going on to really feel like I have an opinion, a strong opinion about anything. This 10th Amendment conversation I think is important. I think it's the reality of what needs to happen. I think the only thing that's going to cool down this federal bullshit, watching another impeachment go down and all the other ass hattery that's going on in D.C., I think the only way to turn that down, to me, is to just turn the whole thing down. It's not one side or the other side needs to cool off and chill out, or some special thing's going to come along where we all unify behind it. Because the only thing that's going to fit that bill, because the pandemic didn't, the only thing that's going to fit that unification bill is some serious military effort that has a real perceived need, like, I don't know, China drops a bomb on us and we got to go give it back to them. That kind of shit's the only thing I think that's going to unify this country as a whole at this point. And I don't think we're supposed to. I don't think we're supposed to be that unified, where we are one unified set of people, one country, we do all the same things and we all into the same. We're not. We're just not. And it's like, I don't know, it's like trying to get somebody to quit smoking. If they're not ready to quit smoking, they're going to keep smoking. It's when they decide that, you know what, I think it's time for me to quit smoking. And then with the right support, help, and stuff like that, they can quit smoking. And I think that's how this federal government thing is going to work, is they need to hit rock bottom, and there's only two ways that happens, and it's a really bad way or a really okay way. And I think the okay way is going to be to trim this down, to take their influence and, I don't know, just their airspace. I mean, they take up so much air on everything that doesn't matter. And they stir up just hatred and disdain and bullshit constantly. They stir it all up and they get us fighting over stupid stuff, and that most people don't care that much about. And it's not don't care as in don't like, as in don't care. Like literally could give a shit less. There's a big difference in I don't care about this subject and I have certain feelings on this subject. There's a big difference in those two things. But somehow through major media and federal conversation, it forces us to make a stand on a position we don't care about. And then we fight over it. It's me and Jamie in a nutshell. Like, he makes me take a stand on something I don't care about. I don't care about this impeachment trial. I have concerns. As mentioned, I have concerns on what it does to our ability to freely speak in political terms and say things like fight this and stand up and march on the Capitol and march on the this and do that and the other. You know, it concerns me that if Trump is convicted, what that does to that kind of speech moving forward. But I really don't care. We impeached him twice and it didn't change anything, and it's not going to change anything this time either. Maybe it keeps him from running for office again if he had any desire to do in the first place, which I don't know. And again, I don't care. We spend so much time and so much air and so many brain cells fighting over things that most people don't care about. And we let that distract us from the things we do. Because somehow we can be talking about something we do care about, and magically it turns into a conversation about something else. And it happens all the time. So, on the state of the state, I don't know. This is my first round of this. I'm trying to get a handle on so many moving parts and pieces. What I do know is that I've heard some rhetoric post-fact about how he might have thrown his elbow out and from patting himself on the back so hard. And does he really feel like he did that good a job? There's no way he did that good a job. And I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what to compare it to because I haven't been paying attention. I know that I'm not going to assume the worst because he has an R next to his name or a D next to his name. I'm going to think about a particular item and try to figure out what it actually means and what it actually is doing and where we're actually going with it, because I think we're all too easily and quickly just kind of like, well, whatever. We're all too busy with our little sub agendas to it and too excited to poke holes. So for example, I was arguing on the internet like I do with some different people about it. And, as known publicly from the show, I agree with Randy Pace on a number of items. He's fun to talk to. He's interesting. And so somebody was making fun of me for agreeing with him on something, and I was like, well, I resent that you don't like that. I was just trying to ask a couple of questions, and, you started kind of jumping into name calling instead of answering my questions. And it's like this assumption that I have an agenda. I don't have an agenda. I'm not smart enough to have an actual agenda in what I'm doing. I have things I think. I have my feelings on stuff, but I'm not smart enough to have some neat little backdoor way to trap you into saying something. So I can be like, ha, I gotcha. And now you can't do shit. You can't make fun of me. You can't make fun of my show. You can't do this. I don't care. Again, that's my whole premise. I'm not that smart that I'm going to sneak in something on you. I'm not going to sit down with I'm not going to sit down with Sheriff Spangler and talk to him for 35 minutes about all this little kind of whatever stuff and get him all smooth and comfortable, and then talk to him about, some super controversial thing and just sneak it in there where he doesn't have a choice but to answer. It's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask a question if I have a question, period. I am citizen A. That's all I am here. I'm not trying to pretend I know more than I do. So going back to the beginning, I do apologize for the drone thing a little bit. Again, I don't know. It doesn't matter to me. The reality of it is, how am I supposed to know other than asking people that should know? And when people that should know don't know the answer either, I don't feel that guilty about it. But I want to try to do better. I want to try to be a reliable source of information for you, the listener, and that was a failure on my part. So I'm going to call it there. Like I said, I think, I'm interested to see where things are going moving forward. I want, I just want to know. I want to know and I want to share. I don't want to tell you what to think. I want you to think on your own. And if you disagree with me, feel free. Ask Todd. Todd and I have argued about all sorts of stuff, and I don't like him any less for it. I hope he doesn't like me any less for it either. So, we need to explore. We need to work together. We need to talk to each other, and we don't need to fall into these traps of the assumption of who you are because of what letter you prefer on your candidate's name. And more importantly, you need to stop falling in the trap of thinking the letters matter. That's, I guess, what I really mean, is that the letters don't matter anymore. They haven't mattered for years. It's just a way to divide the conversation into these simplified categories that don't mean shit. You need to vote for the right person for the job in front of them. And that involves, you need to know what the job is supposed to be. And that's one thing I'm going to work on for you guys. I'm trying. That's one of the things that frustrates me most the more I look at this different stuff. I don't know what they're supposed to be doing. I don't know the Tennessee State Constitution well enough. Neither do they. I don't know the county charter well enough. Neither do they. I don't know the city charter well enough. Neither do they. And that's a problem. And that's a problem because we aren't civically minded and we aren't civically interactive. And we can't say, hey, bullshit. Schools being one of the big ones. The school answers one question a year to the county commission. And that is, can we spend this much money? And their answer has to be yes, unless it's some crazy number. So, I didn't know that, but every single person in here has talked about how much they care about schools and how much they want to help the schools. And I still don't know what that means on whether they can help the schools. Because sort of they can too. And that's what's weird. And this is what's fucked up, is I start being like, well, you can't run on, Oster, you can't run on helping the schools. That's not your job. But then you look at it and it's like, oh, you can change funding and this kind of other stuff and some of the things they can do. And it's like, I don't know. Again, I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I don't plan on being. So that's what I got. Happy State of the State, everybody. Stay safe out there. That's another topic that we haven't started discussing yet. Murder rates up crazy. But I don't mean to put on a narrative. There have been more murders in 2020 than there were in 2019. And so far, although the data pool is small, 2021 is set to outpace 2020 by a lot. But it's a small sample size, so we can't really talk about it yet, I guess. Also, if you go to college, don't bother with home ec. Apparently, that's not actually worth going to college for. So anyway, that's what I got. That's your State of the State, everybody. I'm going to try to do some more of these solo shows, get a little better at them, be a little bit more concise and less rambly and stupid, and work better on getting better clips for you guys. But anyway, I did 45 minutes by myself. It's not terrible. The thing about doing a show by myself, though, is I don't have time to drink. So we're almost in agreement. Almost in agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Working on a website. Should have the website up very soon. It'll have links to shows. It'll have links to sponsor content as we start bringing sponsors on. It will be a easy one-stop shop for places you could go to get in touch with us, either emails, which is almost in agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube links. It'll all be in there. Might throw some merch together one of these days. We might do some other silly stuff. I'm here to have a good time. I enjoy this. I can't wait to get another person in here to talk to about anything and everything, because I know my opinion doesn't matter, but I still like to put it out there.